Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we are going to be doing a debrief on Porsha's story and a content warning for this story, for this debrief, as it includes discussion of covert incest, sexualized boundary violations, and physical abuse. And if you have not listened to Porsha's full episode yet, I do recommend going back and doing that first. But if you don't do that, here is a summary of Porsha's story. So Porsha was the youngest of three. Her older sibling carried more of the scapegoat role, and her middle sibling earned their father's approval through sports. And then there was Porsha, who often flew completely under the radar. So when she went to her friend's house, which was a lot, she described being there more than at her own home. She talked about her parents not really tracking where she was. She talked about being left places, having to call from a payphone to remind someone to come and get her. And Porsha hid in her books. She practiced her instruments and she joined activities, but she made herself small and she kept herself busy. And from the outside, it probably looked like a pretty self-sufficient kid, but she was not self-sufficient. She was just a child who had learned that needing people tended not to lead anywhere good at all. And while this was happening, there was body shaming, physical abuse, academic pressure, emotional enmeshment with her mother, and sexualized comments and boundary violations from her father that left Porsha feeling watched, exposed, and very uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable. So when we talk about the lost child, we are not talking about a kid who just happened to be introverted. We are talking about a child here, Porsha, who learned that disappearing was one of her better options. So now we are going to discuss the big key themes and takeaways from Porsha's story. And the first one is when neglect gets called independence. And one of the things that really struck me about Porsha's story is that what looked like independence from the outside was really not independence at all. And she could keep herself busy, she could stay out of the way, she could function. And so the family got to say that she was fine. Her parents got to say that she didn't need much. And she got treated as if she was just low maintenance, when what was actually happening was that Porsha had learned here that asking for care often led to disappointment. So she just stopped asking. So this isn't independence. This is just abandonment that learned how to look like independence. And it was one of the sneakier traps here in Porsha's life and in the lost child role, because this child, Porsha here, adapts so well to being neglected that it actually makes the neglect easier for everyone else to ignore. So Porsha is not making a scene. She is not demanding things. So she seems fine. And so the adults get to feel like they are not doing anything wrong. And for Porsha, no one is noticing she was gone. No one is coming to find her. No one is checking in. No one is making her feel like she was memorable enough to keep track of. And when that happens for a long period of time, a child starts to absorb that information about who they are. They start to believe that their needs are too much, that love comes more naturally to other people, that they're the kind of person that will get forgotten. And that is what neglect does. It does not just leave a child without care. It teaches a child something false about themselves. And that false thing can really stick around with a person for a very long time. And then another key takeaway that I want to point out is something that was mentioned in the show, the compromised child comment. And there was this detail in Porsha's story that I really haven't been able to stop thinking about. It was when she talked about her father referring to her as the compromised child. Her mother wanted 4 children. Her father wanted 2. So according to him, Porsha was the one that they got stuck with. And he said that to her. And what was heartbreaking here was about the way Porsha told it. She found a way to hear this as a joke. She found a way to make it part of this family dynamic, to translate it into something that felt like it meant that her dad was glad that she was there. And that's because children will do that. They'll try to bend reality pretty far to preserve the attachment that they have to a parent, because they need that parent. And a child is not usually in a position to look at their father and say, that was emotionally horrible or cruel, and I'm not going to take that in. So what they do instead is they find a way to make it mean something less painful, and then they carry the actual message underneath it all without really fully realizing it. And the actual message in that comment was that Porsha here is extra, that she's not fully planned for, that she's someone that the family had to make room for rather than something they were excited about. And when that message comes from a parent, it tends to become part of your child's inner voice, and it tends to show up as an adult in whether they feel like they are taking up too much space and whether they feel like their presence is a burden, and it still hurts and it's still being carried. And the next thing we have on our list here in our key takeaways is being ignored and emotionally used at the same time. And I have in quotes here, parentification. So Porsha was both neglected and emotionally used at the same time. And I think that combination sounds like a contradiction, but it really is not. And a child can be forgotten as a person while still being leaned on as an emotional support. And for Porsha, she can be overlooked when she needs care, but she then gets pulled in when an adult needs comfort or a witness or someone to confide in. And with Porsha, this showed up through her relationship with her mother. Her mother talked about the father's behavior. She told him not to marry someone like him. She told him not to become her. She shared the reality of what the marriage was. Instead of protecting your child from this, protecting Porsha from this, a child shouldn't have to become an emotional container for her mom's pain or have to worry about whether their mom is okay or whatever parent is okay. With Porsha, it was her mom. Porsha was directly brought into comforting her mother. So this is an enmeshment here. This is a parentification that is taking place. And it is confusing because it can look like closeness here, but at the same time, Porsha is being very neglected by her parents. And it's very confusing for a child. The child might feel trusted in some moments here, feel special, feel needed, feel like the parent actually really sees them. But underneath, it's just a role reversal where the child is functioning as a witness and a comforter and an emotional support for an adult. And at the same time, Porsha's not getting that back at all. So Porsha is being really harmed here. She's carrying her own experience without getting help with it, while also being asked to carry her mother's experience. And none of the adults in this situation were at all worried about what was going on with Porsha and what she was carrying herself. So this really creates like a split. It's very hard to untangle later on because a survivor here can love that parent that is doing this, and they can understand that parent that is doing this, and they can be very protective of that parent, but they can still feel anger for not having being protected at all. It's very confusing. All of these things can be true at the same time. It's just very, very confusing. And there's a lot of you out there that have gone through this and are still dealing with this to this day. And then the next thing we have on our list of key takeaways is the covert incest in what the body here already knew. So for Porsha, she knew something was wrong, but she just didn't have a name for what it actually was. And Porsha talked about her bathroom privacy not being respected. She talked about her father barging in, about the sexualized comments, about being compared to an actress her father also sexualized, about feeling watched, about this physical closeness from her dad that just really felt off, and just a persistent feeling of feeling quote unquote icky around him. And what makes covert incest so particularly horrible is that it lives in this gray area where the survivor is feeling violated, but the family can really deny the violation. And her body knows that she's not safe, Porsha is saying in this episode. And she knows these boundary lines have been crossed, but it's hard for her to put into words what it actually is and what is going on. And these things are all being done in a way where he can get away with them and deny them. So Porsha is feeling a lot of this stuff in her body, and her body has a memory of all of these things, the discomfort. Her body's feeling disgusted. She's feeling frozen. She's feeling confused. And there's this sense that something was wrong while everyone else is acting completely normal. So for her in this situation, and for many survivors, sometimes healing here, starts not when a survivor can prove what happened, but when they stop needing the family to validate what they know that they are experiencing. There's a lot of gaslighting here going on with this one as well. So if you're going through this, start to look up covert incest. If you have this type of feeling, we did an episode a long time ago with Kenneth Adams about this, Dr. Kenneth Adams. So it's just an interesting thing that I wanted to point out, because this is something that goes unsaid and goes unheard, but could be happening in your home, could have happened in your home. And it's something that you might not have been able to put a name to. And if you now are able to do that, you can start to create a healing process possibly. And then the next thing on our takeaways is what I call, quote unquote, how he is. So in relation to the things that we've kind of already discussed when it came to the covert incest, the response that Porsha got when she was denied her privacy, when she was denied her rights by her dad, when all these things were going on, the response was essentially from her mom, "He's your father. Don't anger him. You know how he is." And how he is just really turns an unsafe person into what I call the weather. So it makes him something the rest of the family just has to work around. And what it communicates to a child is that their discomfort really doesn't matter compared to the abuser's comfort, that their needs will be reorganized around his mood, his weather, that if they want any kind of peace, they are going to have to manage him rather than being protected from him. So when a child hears, how he is enough, they stop expecting protection at all. They stop reporting what bothers them. They stop trusting their own reads on situations a lot of the times, most of the times. And eventually they may stop having visible needs altogether, because having visible needs only ever created more problems for them. And this is just a family and an enabling parent preserving an abusive dynamic by teaching the child, Porsha here, to just keep on going on and to just check what the weather is every day and maneuver yourself around it. Today it's raining with thunderstorms. Figure out your day instead of, telling those thunderstorms and clouds and rain to actually go away. The enabling parent isn't doing that here. So she has to check the weather a lot here when it comes to the quote unquote, how he is excuse. And then the last thing we have on our list here, and I'm going to make this one short, which is alcoholism, addiction, and not being the whole story. So a lot of the time with these situations, and for Porsha here, the excuse for a lot of behavior sometimes is that the parent is an addict. In this case, that they were an alcoholic, and everything that's going on comes from that thing, that they're calling it, let's say, quote unquote, a disease. But being an addict and being an alcoholic doesn't give you the right to be abusive. And these things are two completely different things. It does not give you an excuse to do anything that you want. And your family system shouldn't be built around, the entitlement and control of an abuser and using alcoholism as an excuse. It is not permission to be abusive. No one should be abused, and alcohol being the excuse for what it was. And a lot of you are going through that, have gone through that. My heart goes out to all of you, and you deserve respect, and more respect than having that be an excuse and someone not taking accountability, or an enabler using that for their partner to escape accountability as well. So those were our key takeaways and themes of this story, for Porsha's story. And for the things that I want for Porsha going forward, I want Porsha just to keep building a life where she's not an afterthought. I want her to keep trusting the part of herself that knew something was wrong even before she had words for it. I want her to feel the difference between real independence and abandonment that she learned when she was younger. And I want her to have relationships where she does not have to earn her place by being useful or easy or being small. I want her to keep letting herself be seen by people who are actually safe enough to see her. And I want her to keep realizing the responsibility that she was handed by her mother to take care of her mother's pain was not hers to carry. And I want her to put that shame back where it belongs, because it was not hers. And I want her to know that being forgotten by the people who were supposed to remember her was never proof that she was not forgettable. So those are the things that I want for Porsha going forward. I know that she's been building a life with her husband, her child, her dog, having her own home and her own peace. We just want those things to continue for her going forward. And I want those things for all of you too. And I hope you found this debrief episode of Porsha's story helpful, useful, insightful. And if you want to be a guest like Porsha was on our Survivor Stories, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, fill out our guest form, press the submit button, and we'll go from there. You can also join our survivor support group at narcissistapocalypse.com, and we do have a newsletter as well with free workbooks for every new survivor story, all at narcissistapocalypse.com. And that is it for today's debrief episode. So for myself and Porsha, we hope you have a good night.